Good evening, everybody. I am Jeff Neipel. I'm the director of the Davidson um, Athletic Fund and also hold the position as an assistant athletic director in our wonderful Davidson Athletics department. We are thrilled to have you here tonight. We've got over 50 people logged in to talk baseball in December, which is just an amazing thing to do. This is a great time and time to do a little bit of show and tell with some of the new toys that we have, and for you to get an inside look at the Wildcats and what we're going to be doing on the field next spring. Um, I'm going to get out of the way here in a second, but I want to give you one programming note. We are going to be doing some question and answers later on in the program. We're using tonight the Q&A feature that you'll see down at the bottom of your screen. And so you can start preloading it now. We'll take a little while before we'll get to your questions, but know that if you put your questions in there, we'll do everything we can to get to as many of them as we can. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to one of my colleagues in athletic communications. Please give your attention to Justin Parker, also known as JP, and I'll be back later on. But thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jeff, and welcome in, everybody. It's great to have baseball talk in December, as Jeff said. I guess they call that hot stove talk. We're all gathered around the proverbial hot stove tonight, talking a little baseball, thinking about spring, and a lot of things to touch on tonight. We're going to give you a quick rundown real quick of who we have and what we're going to talk about. Head coach Rucker Taylor will be on just in a moment with me. He's entering year 6 as the head coach here at Davidson College, his 12th year overall. Rucker's done a fine job here at Davidson, big part of Dick Cook's teams as well when he was an assistant. Helping Davidson to that magical run in 2017. Of course, 2 years ago, won 43 games. So Rucker Taylor will be on here in just a moment, talk through some things. Other guys on the staff that will join us tonight, Aiden Wershing. He's a first-year guy, director of player development. Aiden is going to touch on kind of the general overview of TrackMan and how it impacts the pitching side of things, the different terminologies and the analytics that you were provided through TrackMan on the pitching side. Josiah Hissong, assistant coach in his 2nd year. He'll join us after that, and he'll talk about how the data collected impacts the catchers here at Davidson. And then Todd Miller, also an assistant coach in his 2nd year, will come on and talk about the impact of hitters with TrackMan. And you might be saying, what is this TrackMan stuff? If you follow baseball at the college level, at the pro level, all these terms keep popping up, right? If someone hits a home run, if Jack Catrone or Mike Carrico hits a home run, you hear, oh, I wonder what the launch angle was on that, or the exit velocity, or things like that. For pitchers, spin rate is a big one, right? We're going to touch on all that tonight, and I think you'll be impressed with the amount of information that is at the hands of the coaches and the staff and all the players here at Davidson now. Even in practice, that's the part I didn't think about. And Rucker, I'll go ahead and bring you on, and we'll talk a little bit about the fall. But even just in practice, the impact of TrackMan, the amount of knowledge that comes on. So Rucker, welcome in, and why don't we just touch real quick on that fall? I know the guys are working on exams this week, trying to wrap up the semester, but you had a significant amount of time with them in the fall. So what are your biggest takeaways from what you guys were able to do?
Yeah, so I think we definitely got better in the fall. Kind of going through the participant list now and seeing some alumni on there, and I think some of those guys sort of relate to. There's some falls that we came in and a lot of older guys and a lot of continuity made with the coaching staff, and we knew where this was, knew where that was, and the fall was very consistent. And I told the team this at the end of the fall this year. I think we were really not good the first couple of weeks of the fall, and a lot of that, it's 14 new guys this year, which is a huge class for us. The NCAA's changed the Division I roster maximum. They've gone back and forth the last few years, and they've used COVID as the rationale. And I think it's safe to say that as Division I head coaches, there's a commonality on not a lot, but I think all would agree that how it's been handled has left a lot to be desired. So we were at 40 this year, so that gives us a large group of newcomers. But I thought really the last third of fall, we got to a much better spot. Maybe coincidentally, maybe not. TrackMan was up and running about that same time. It was a very lengthy process with a couple of different departments on campus getting everything approved, installed, and all that good stuff. So I think especially from the pitching side, I think what those guys were able to see originally with Rapsodo, which we have for hitters and pitchers, and Aiden can maybe briefly touch on that as well, but really more so with the stadium unit for TrackMan, and a portable TrackMan unit also that goes in the bullpen. I think those guys were able to see a lot of things that they've seen through video, seen through their own eyes when watching the YouTube channels that Aiden puts out from practice of different cut-ups. But I think to see the numbers, to be able to get feedback instantaneously when needed, was very important. So, I think the good news is we're on an upward trajectory. If we had ended the fall where we were about in the same spot where we were about 2 weeks into it, I might be looking for a different line of work at this point. But no, it was a good group. The older guys, I think, were very welcoming. The freshmen, probably one of the more mature groups I think we've had coming in, and they've gone about things in a good way. And I think the last couple of weeks, they've been a lot of time on their own. And, we go up to the clubhouse and we're working out of there a lot. And, guys are coming in and doing things between exams, between class, and probably getting a little bit of an outlet during this time of the year. But it's been really nice to see the amount that they're putting in on their own during, a really important time of the year.
Before you bring in Aiden to talk a little bit about the pitchers and everything, you and I have talked a little bit about just the amount of information at hand now, and also balancing what you're seeing with your own eyes and your own experiences and things like that. As a coaching staff, what's that process been like, and just trying to find the balance between, okay, I think you talked about sometimes you're seeing confirmation, right, of what you're seeing on the field, and other times you're going, okay, this is new kind of things.
Yeah. So a couple different things. There are, I had was out of town this morning to do it for an alumni event, and was having breakfast with a couple guys that are professional coaches at the major league level. One guy's a third base coach, one guy's a first base coach, and one guy's on the agent side. They're just talking about, at the professional level, there is so much information. And this was really interesting. I'm not going to get too specific, but there's a very big moment in a playoff game, maybe Coach Joe's favorite team, that there was a unique play that was called. And Buddy was going through the explanation this morning. The sign was given. Runner at first base had the right sign. The hitter acknowledged it. And long story short, in a one-run game late in a game in the postseason, I believe it was a 14-year major league player was asked to do something he's apparently never done in a game before. So there's probably some human element, even at that highest level, that the heartbeat's maybe a little bit different in that ninth inning of a close game, whether you're a closer, whether you're a hitter, whether you're the shortstop or that routine ground ball hit to you. So I think that's maybe the nuance now is there's all this information, who needs it, when do they need it, and then what's actually valuable, right? I think there's a lot of people on Twitter that can spout off, oh, this is this is that. Well, what does it mean, right? And I think that's really maybe the idea for this get together tonight was, we've got this really cool piece of technology called TrackMan. Okay, well, what is it? What is launch angle? When John Smoltz is on the postseason playoff, he's talking about, well, it's a launch angle this, it's a launch angle swing. Well, what does he mean by that? And is he maybe actually saying the right thing, right? And John Smoltz is, knows more baseball than he's forgotten more than I'll ever know. But there's some terminology that, Aiden can probably tell you is maybe not exactly correct by some people when talking about where the game's going right now. And maybe the most relevant information we had is Bennett Flynn, who's grad transferred to Notre Dame, had a great career for us, and freshman year is a freshman All-American. Sophomore year really starts diving into True Media and Synergy, which are these software that combines all the stats and information and puts it together. And Bennett had a terrible sophomore year, and he would tell you that, and we have no issue saying that. And pitching coach at the time, Parker Bangs, we kind of figured out, hey, Bennett, he's overthinking everything. So we changed it his junior year, where Bennett didn't have the Synergy password. He wasn't allowed to watch any video of himself. And it was, hey, man, you've got two really good pitches. Just go throw them somewhere around the zone, and we're going to be in a good spot. Conversely, there's some guys on the team this year that they've been trying to maybe change the shape of their breaking ball. And because of this information, and so many guys are growing up with information similar to this, the learning curves maybe shorten a little bit. So there's still a huge human element to this. I think that's, again, at the highest level. I think that's what a lot of really smart people are coming back to is you're still dealing with a lot of, players that are their husbands, their fathers. They hear the booze, right? They see the mean things that are said on. I've got several buddies that are they're working at that level that they've deleted all social media. Don't want to have that influence on them. So for us, I think as college coaches is who needs what, how do they need it, when do they need it, and that's not easy. That's not easy. But all that to get to, this information has made our jobs, I think, a heck of a lot easier. I think it's created some cool opportunities for our guys to learn from it. I think it's certainly give you maybe some more content for the spring rolls around. Aiden's got a great background on this, and it can certainly outline a lot of the things. I think he'll do a great job with it.
All right. Well, I'm going to step away and let you bring on Aiden Wershing.
Well, thank you so much. We'll dive right into this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen quickly. There we are. So, as alluded to by both RT and by JP, we're super excited to have TrackMan. We've been lucky to have Rapsodo throughout much of the beginning of the fall, and then towards the end, we were able to really implement TrackMan data, and it's been definitely a game changer just in every kind of setting, not only in our scrimmages against ourselves or against outside competition, but also in everyday practice sessions and bullpens, batting practice, everything along those lines. So the big question tonight is, what is TrackMan? We've already been talking about it, so we might as well get an understanding of what it is. So it's a radar-based tracking system, and specifically ours is located right above the press box at Wilson Field, and it overlooks the field. It is calibrated for Wilson Field, so it knows where the home plate is. It knows where the pitcher's mound is, the two most important parts of the data collecting process. It does provide moderate visualizations with the radar system and the data it collects, but what it does a really good job of is just giving a CSV file with so much information. As you can see here is just a screenshot of some of the information. I would say this is probably maybe less than 25% of the rows, or excuse me, the columns. The rows are dictated by the number of pitches you throw in an outing or the number of pitches thrown in a bullpen session. In this case, this was taken from one of our scrimmages. So, but the number of rows continue on. You have different degrees, but these are the most pertinent information, but still, it's not incredibly digestible just looking at all these numbers. There's a lot to try to make sense of. So this fall, we've utilized Baseball Cloud, which has been beneficial in creating really good visualizations for our pitchers and our hitters alike, and our coaches to dive into and get a better understanding of what we're doing in different facets of the game, whether it be batting practice or pitching. So I'm going to dive in today the pitching side. And as you can see, the main three things we've used TrackMan for and Rapsodo prior was developing an arsenal for our pitchers, was understanding our pitchers' strengths and weaknesses, and also creating visualizations and numerical results that maybe go beyond what we can see with just our eyes or what we can see on a camera that's on an uploaded YouTube link a couple of days later. It's one of those things where you get instantaneous feedback and it produces visuals like you can see on your screen here. We have movement plots, which are where you can see those red and yellow dots. In this case, and we're going to dive more in depth in a minute, but in this case, those red and yellow dots, that's one of our pitchers' fastballs and sliders. And in this case, this pitcher, his fastball has been anywhere between 90, mid 90s, low 90s this fall, and his slider, even more impressively, has been anywhere between 86 and 90 miles per hour. You can produce heat maps and whiff percentage charts. So briefly getting into whiff. So that's just the number of swings and misses you can generate against, you can specify right, left-handed hitters. This is just a general scheme. And then below you can get really in-depth results, numerical results on strike percentage, zone percentage, edge percentage. So I think these are really important numerical results for us to get, but what we're going to focus tonight primarily in this presentation is the development of an arsenal, because that's what we do all the time. That's what the pitching coaches are always tinkering and trying to maximize what our strengths are as a pitcher. So in order to best understand the arsenal development, this is just what kind of is spit out on a TrackMan displayed in just one row, one column. And it looks like a lot of information. Maybe some things we recognize. Okay, we know what the pitch type is. FB stands for fastball. We know what velocity stands for. But maybe some of these other terms, which we're going to get into right now, aren't quite as familiar to us. So how we break this up to make it a little more digestible is what we're looking at are three components to TrackMan data and Rapsodo data for that matter as well. You have spin, you have movement, and you have initial ball release. So the spin metrics are these ones highlighted here. And RPM, max RPM, it's interchangeable with true spin and total spin. That'll be important a little later on. But when you see RPM, max RPM, just think also total and true spin. Then you have spin efficiency, gyro degree, spin direction. And then for movement, you have the vertical and horizontal movement of the pitch. And then for initial ball release, you have the release angle, horizontal angle, and you also have the release height and release side. So to dive into it more directly, we can go ahead and focus. Oh, I think I skipped one. There we go. We can focus right now on the spin factor. So as I mentioned, RPM, max RPM. It's the same thing, just with Rapsodo and TrackMan, they spit out different kind of titles, if you will. So, and as JP was talking about, the spin of a ball is just as important to note as the velocity in most cases. So it's how the ball is coming out of the pitcher's hand. And I have a baseball here in case you want to just watch the actual movement of a baseball to the side of your screen. You're more than welcome to do that as well as I speak. So the forces at play that affect the ball, besides the spin generated by the pitcher's hand, are gravity, Magnus force, and air drag. Magnus force is basically gravity for reverse. So it's the force combating against gravity. And air drag, air is a liquid. So depending on humidity factors and other things, there's so many things that affect the way the ball moves. But in general, there are four ways the ball moves. It's either top spun, back spun, side spun, or gyro spun. And the gyro degree, which we'll talk more in just a second, it's like picture a washing machine where all the clothes are just rotating around the ball in its opposite manner. And so that makes the ball typically go down. And so, as we said, it's great to know that a pitcher throws 90 miles per hour. As you can see here, we have pitcher A and pitcher B. They're both throwing 90 miles per hour. So you can go up to the plate as a hitter thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go face a guy throwing 90 miles per hour. Or as a pitching coach, you confront a new pitcher, okay, he's throwing 90 miles per hour. This is great to know. But the spin is just as important to know in order to determine how you're going to pitch against certain hitters, or to understand where you should maybe pitch just in general in the strike zone. So typically, when we're looking at spin efficiency, fastballs are spinning anywhere between 95% and 100%. So the two numbers, as we said, the RPM, max RPM, in this case, it's 2100 and 2600 spin. Those numbers are pretty close. So we can just know by looking at those numbers, we're probably looking at a fastball here. Changeup, it can vary. You can have anywhere between 40 and truly 100 spin efficiency. So those two numbers, maybe it won't be 2100 and 2600. It'll be most likely half of that, maybe 1100 and 1200. But it can be anywhere between 40, 95 efficient, just spinning out of the hand. Curveballs, it's top spun. So similar for a fastball, but it can just be spinning in the opposite direction. So fastballs are back spun. Curveballs, if they're truly over the top, can be entirely top spun. But there's some variation based on the degree it's coming out of the hand. And then sliders are the most interesting pitch because especially nowadays you're hearing sweeper, you're hearing gyro slider. So gyro slider, as we talked about, like that washing machine movement where it's spinning sideways like this, as opposed to maybe a slider that's coming out a little bit more like a curveball, like a slurvy pitch, or a sweeper that cuts across the zone, has more horizontal movement. But in general, those two numbers, the total spin and true spin, don't match. And looking quickly again at the pitcher A and pitcher B, we can see that maybe that 90 mile per hour of pitcher A has a little bit more cut to it because it's not as truly spinning. It's maybe coming out of the hand a little differently than pitcher B. So then when we look at this again, we can see spin efficiency is defined simply as the true spin divided by the total spin. And then the brother, if you will, to spin efficiency is gyro degrees. So if you have more efficiency with the pitch being thrown, it's going to have less gyro degree. So if this is the default, a backspin fastball, then if we rotate it 90 degrees, then it's spinning gyroscopically. So that's where we get the gyro degree. And it can only go 90 degrees. So the measurements are between 0 and 90. And just looking back at this other slide where we can see that it was 95% matching for the fastball, well, it's just the opposite. Now the gyro degree is going to be much lower. Changeups, similar to what we said, it varies depending on what kind of changeup, but typically between 5 and 40 is the gyro, so like half spun, especially when you got those side winding ones. Curveballs can have a gyro degree between 30, 35. And then the sliders, like we said, especially the true gyroscopic slider, spinning like this. So a full gyro degree. So the direct correlation between gyro degree and spin efficiency. More gyro, less spin efficiency. As you can see in the example here, 96% spin efficiency, pretty low gyro, and vice versa. So then we get into the fun part, in my opinion, is like the horizontal and the vertical break. So we can see there's 4 quadrants to this chart, but let's go ahead and just block out the bottom. So the bottom is top spun and the top is back spun. So this is where typically in the backspin region, where our fastballs live, where our changeups typically live. And as you can see in the example here, it says 16.7 vertical break and very minimum horizontal movement. And so these are really important in a bullpen session to know exactly how our pitches are moving. Specifically, in this case, that's a fastball there. And then if we cover up the top, then we're focusing on top spin. In this quadrant, when you're reading the TrackMan data or Rapsodo data, whichever platform you're using, you can see that this is where typically the curveballs live, because they're truly top spun. And maybe you get some slurvy pitches in there. Very rarely you'll get the gyro slider, because the gyro slider doesn't have any induced movement. So it lives right in the middle of the quadrant. It is 0, 0. Everything acting on a gyro slider is all the elements and the forces we said earlier: magnets, gravity, air drag. And it's not induced by the pitcher themselves. So you can see here that we had that fastball as an example, and then we just put a couple other pitches in there. So the blue pitch is a changeup, and then the green pitch is a curveball or a slurvy pitch, and then the yellow pitch is a curveball or a slurvy pitch. Now, when we're looking at this, we as pitchers want to create as much differential in our pitches as possible. Because if we throw a slider that moves like a curveball and a curveball that moves like a slider, and they're maybe even the same velocity, then there's not much benefit to just trying to perfect those 2 pitches. Let's just focus on one. Or maybe you actually see there's some differential and you really try to make that differential movement even more so. So the best way to look at this is with real examples of our pitchers. So I'm going to be playing these videos simultaneously, but feel free to look back and forth between the 2 videos. So we have on the left, we have our sophomore right-handed pitcher, and on the right, we have our junior left-handed pitcher. And it's just the same video is going to be playing over and over again. But take a look, and just using your eyes, you can kind of notice our right-hander is not a true sidearm, but definitely a lower slot guy for sure. And then it's the exact opposite for our left-hander. He's very over the top with his fastball delivery, and all of his pitches for that matter. And we can see this with the TrackMan data below. So just looking at our left-handed pitcher there, you can see the red are his fastballs. They're having anywhere between 20, 25 inches of induced vertical movement. Whereas a fastball by our right-hander has seemingly between 10 and 15 induced vertical movement. So you can see that they're both throwing fastballs, maybe even similar velocities, but completely different, not just because they're right and left-handed. It's just a completely different look from a movement perspective. And you can see also our right-hander has done a good job of having his slider kind of gradually move down. Changeup, he's getting some these green pitches are the changeups, and some of them are moving negatively vertically, which is really pretty rare. And it's always fun. Some of the guys, they get excited when they see that from a movement perspective. So again, looking at them deliver one more time, you can definitely see it with the eyes, but it's backed even more so by the data and how much differential they have between their pitches. So moving on to the next segment would be, that's great. Once we freeze frame both these pitchers, we have the same pitchers we use as examples below. We have the lefty on the right and the righty over here. And we have two very extreme examples with major leaguers shown above. So you can kind of see that the next portion of what we're talking about is the release height. So if the release height is consistent, that's what we want because it's so crucial for tunneling. So if he's throwing his fastball out of that arm slot, like our lefties, you can see if he's throwing his fastball there, well, hopefully his breaking pitch is coming out of there as well, whether it be a true topspin curveball or a slider, and vice versa. Same thing with, I hope that the changeup for our righty is coming out of the same release height. And this is a pretty good example of what it looks like when you have all of your pitches coming out of a similar release height. It's definitely more deceptive for the hitter. If you have some that are leaking below, the hitters, really good hitters, can pick up on that and they can understand, like, well, he's going to throw this breaking ball, he's going to come way, way over the top, or he's going to sink way lower. And so it's really important as we're in a bullpen session or we're competing to really make sure that we're consistent with where the ball is being released. So the next one is release side. This is just a simple one. The baseball picture here, just alone on the mound, is right dead center. So that's 0, 0, 0 feet of variation to either side. And then we can have the examples of, let's pretend Scherzer, the pitcher on the right, is right in the middle. So his fastball is seemingly coming right over the top, 0, 0. But then we have Randy Johnson, where first off, his limbs are so long, even if he's standing right in the middle as a lefty hitter, it can't be comfortable because that release side is probably similar to the example here of like -2, -3 feet. And the negative is not, obviously there's no negative positive. It's just a matter if you're left or right-handed. So you could be 2 feet to the right, 2 feet to the left. And then the next important part would be the release angle for fastballs. Typically, if you're truly behind the pitch, the backspin fastball, you're coming down on it. So it's going to be a negative release angle. In the picture, we have the example here. I see -0.3 because he's a little bit more to the side than typically if we were to use the lefty as an example we saw earlier, he's definitely coming like at a negative degree of maybe 2, maybe sometimes even 3. Breaking pitches, you can see Strasburg here as the example. They come out of the hand up a little bit. And these are minute degrees. So it's not like he's literally throwing the ball up. It's just coming out of the hand a little bit more up than down. And then another way to look at it is the horizontal angle. So the line is indicating where the fingers are in relation to the ball. And so you can see for Strasburg's pitch, the ball is just slightly above his fingers. And it's good to know the horizontal angle, again, very small little degrees, and understanding how the pitch is coming out at a consistent manner so we can replicate these pitches as frequently as we can. And every pitch is a snowflake, so you try your best just to replicate snowflakes. It's impossible, but you try your best. So you have here one of our pitchers, and he's actually probably one of our more analytical savvy guys. And he's instrumental in getting shots like this. Truthfully, he was great in teaching me how to use this high-speed camera. So I'm very grateful for him. So I'm happy to use him as an example here to speed up the video a little bit. But here he is throwing his one-seamer, and a one-seamer is basically like a sinking fastball. And the cool thing about this video, I love it because not only do we get to see how the pitch is coming out of his hand, but also because this is what TrackMan is doing all the time at instantaneous speeds. It's taking the ball out of the pitcher's hand and giving us these numbers so we can not have to have a million shots on high speed, but that we can have a million points of data to reference at any given time. So definitely thankful for this guy showing me the high-speed camera. And I guess in short, it's kind of a lot of information, but it's exciting stuff. TrackMan's been super beneficial to have for us, and just looking forward to continue using it, especially on the pitching side here. But I'm really happy to pass along the rest of the presentation here for Josiah, who's going to run through the catchers for you.
Thank you, Aiden. Appreciate that. A lot of really good information there. Let's see if I can get my. So Aiden dove into obviously the pitching side of things, and I wanted to touch base and start from the catching side of what TrackMan actually gives us is an objective strike zone, right? So what you see on TV in terms of when the ball crosses the plate and whether we think the umpire called it a strike or a ball or he was right or wrong, that gives us a objective zone, right? And obviously we're still playing the game of baseball where the guy behind the plate gives us a subjective zone. So what we can do here from a catching side of things is we can overlay and play a strike zone to where the pitch was thrown. Red indicates strike called, ball indicates ball called. So for this example, we're looking at our unit as a whole and seeing some data points and these plots and all this great stuff. And it looks like it's just a scrabbled mess, but really what it dictates, it shows us is where we're sufficient and deficient at in terms of catching the baseball. We'll use this, and to the right, you can see a heat map again that shows the idea of, hey, we're going to see a lot of pitches to what would be away to a left hand or away to right-handed into a left-handed hitter. From that, we can see that we're getting either a lot of strikes called or a lot of balls called. This allows us, this format, which is the baseball cloud that Aiden talked about, allows us to generate reports. We can do it as a staff total. We can do it as, player A, player B, or player C. We can break down a date range, if we want to look at a week, a month, or the fall, for an example. It allows our guys to visualize their strengths and their weaknesses. We can break it down to look at, pitcher A catching or throwing a pitcher or catcher B, or so on and so forth. This really allows us to structure development plans based on opportunity and chances. So for an example, if catcher A has more opportunity to receive the ball to his glove side versus catcher B, we're able to, hey, this week we need to work with you on getting on the machine and setting you up in and working on that ball coming into that glove instead of away from it. And it also allows us to see that you're deficient at the top of the zone, the bottom of the zone, or you're proficient one way or the other, and structure a development plan that's personalized to each guy. We've got roughly 5 to 6 catchers here at Davidson at one point in time. So being able to individualize that as well as construct a whole program for number of guys this has been very beneficial, allowing us to see where we're good and what we're bad at. Down below, as you see, is a click here as a sophomore catcher for us. Anthony came in and did a lot of different things in a year. He's a really good north and south receiver, guy that's got a true 12-6 breaking ball. He handles him well. Where he's struggled in the past is the pitch that he's receiving well here, away from his body, down and out. What we've met about over the past year has really shifted as I'm able to show him these graphs and these plots and these heat maps to say, hey, man, we've seen it, but we can now show it to you in some form of data. Conversely here, we can also see it broken up into percentage, right? So we can look at fastballs, breaking balls, and all off-speed pitches and see stolen versus lost. And as we'll dive into it some more, as we get into TrackMan, as we get into TrueMedia, you'll be able to see a stat that we use called Strikes Looking Plus, which I'll dive into here in a little bit. But you get to see number of opportunities, stolen and lost, and then his advantage or disadvantage. We got to use TrackMan for about the last 3 to 4 weeks of the fall. A handful of scrimmages, so the data is a little bit sparse in terms of what we have. But as we break into the spring and as we've used guys in bullpen settings on the field, we've been able to see how guys are, again, proficient or not so good at certain zones. And this is just a different way of looking at it, right? I think the beauty of our guys and our student athletes here is that they think a lot of different ways. So my goal this fall into the spring was to give them different avenues, different resources, and different ways of learning, whether it's visual, whether it's through listening, or whatever the case may be. As we continue here, we're going to look into TrueMedia. TrueMedia is a similar interface such as Baseball Cloud. The beauty of TrueMedia and what's really been good for our guys and our catchers, it plugs and plays with Synergy, which is the video software that we use, that we upload after every game that we play in the spring. So you obviously cannot see it in this image, but if you look to the right, or my right, what could be your left, you see strike frame, ball frame with an underline. We can click that and it'll pop up right to that pitch. So as for an example, if we look at the fastball, or excuse me, slider and curveball, if we hit the 300 strike frame, we can go and it'll pull up the catcher that we're looking at. In this example, we're looking at a junior catcher of ours who will show you some clips on the left here. But this will pull up whether he lost it or won it. And again, this is all subject right to the umpire. And sometimes we like the umpire and sometimes we don't like the umpire, depending on how he calls the game. But this allows us to give kind of an overview of the strike zone, to how we caught it. Did we catch it well? Did we catch it poorly? Did the umpire make a bad call? Did he make a good call? So on and so forth. As you look at the very top, you see strikes looking plus, which is SL plus. Essentially what that stat is, it quantifies how well of a receiver you are. And the biggest thing for our guys is we want to be really, really diligent and really, really good at receiving the baseball. That's our number one priority. We talk about it every day. We do it every day. There's not a day that goes by that we're not doing some form of receiving, whether it be just in catch play, off a machine, flips from a coach or a teammate, or bullpen, whatever the case may be, right? So the idea that we want to be really, really good at it, we've got to practice it, and we've got to value it. And what the game has shifted in the past 5 to 10 years is been able to evaluate and give a true number to that position group and that skill. For as long as the game's been played, there really hasn't been this stat like you have for batting average or on base percentage or slugging percentage or ERA or WHIP or whatever. So in the last decade or so, they've really started to quantify the catching position. Fingers crossed that they don't nullify it and go to this automatic strike zone, and the art of receiving, I think, will get lost at that point. But for right now, this allows us to quantify the catcher. The average is 100. The Division I average tends to roughly be around that 95 to 96. The only kicker to this number is you've got to have a TrackMan to be able to give you that objective strike zone. So last year, obviously, when we did not have the TrackMan, our data is going to be a little bit less just because of the availability and number of games played with TrackMan. And it allows us to look at our catchers and note from this fall, as you watch Jacob receive this pitch, we're able to see that pitch, he stuck well, he got across his body, and we could overlay that in a one-on-one meeting with him to show him where that ball crossed the plate versus where he caught it and how he stuck it. Conversely, here's more of a true breaking ball as he works down underneath it, up through it, right? So again, this allows us to overlay this information, this video, and just gives another way for our catchers to see, interact with the data, interact with the video, and for guys that learn differently or see or interact, just gives them more of a different avenue of seeing what they're doing well or poorly, where they're getting opportunities, where they're not. And then lastly, what this will allow us to do as we get into the spring, we'll be able to generate more advanced scouting reports, whether it be for our guys, for opposing teams coming through. And it really allows us to break down certain things and some stuff and goals that I want to really notch into here with the TrackMan is going to be how we receive with runners in scoring position. Obviously, we're moving to a different position in the secondary position. How we receive, in different counts. So we ahead, behind, are we in those 1-1, 2-2, 0-0 counts. And then obviously, I think the biggest piece that I'm really looking forward to diving into and playing around with is the different stances. You can turn on the World Series or the opening day, and I guarantee between those 2 dates, you're going to hear a handful of times, this guy goes down to a knee or this guy stays in traditional stance. The ability to see what guys do well and what they are better at, and whether it be a knee down, no knees down, if it's a secondary stance, if it's a catch the ball with their eyes closed, whatever the case may be, we want to be able to quantify that and allow that catcher to be at his best at all times. And I think this will really allow us to do that. It'll allow us to give us some instant feedback, some really good hard data that our guys can see, they can again interact with, we can communicate with, we can have a better conversation than what myself or the other coaches see, whether it be game, bullpen, inter squad, or catch play, right? I think this allows us to be just a little bit more in depth with our catchers and what they're doing well, what they need to be built better at, where they're getting opportunities and where they're not getting as many opportunities. That way we can keep our skill refined at all times. With that being said, I'll pass it over to Coach Miller. He can go over the offensive side of things.
All right, thanks, Josiah. Thank you, Aiden. You guys done a great job. I get to talk about the hardest thing to do in sports, hitting. And, TrackMan has been a huge piece of informing our guys this fall. This is a snapshot of Baseball Cloud, which Aiden and Josiah both referenced. This is just kind of a broad overview of some of the data points that some of our guys here have in this snapshot. The biggest thing with the data points, we've used it to track and evaluate, understand strengths and weaknesses of our hitters, and ultimately it's all designed to speed up the individual development process. And if you can see on here, some of the metrics that you see, average exit velocity, all these data points here are from scrimmages that we played in, whether it's an inter squad or when we played Erskine or Charlotte. These are the data points of balls put in play. So you've got your average exit velocity, your peak exit velocity, your hard hit percentage, which is all that measures is a ball put in play above 90. Damage percentage is ball put in play above 90 at a 10-degree or higher launch angle. Launch angle, let's talk about launch angle. If you think about ground being 0, as the ball is put in play above 0, it would be off in reference to the bat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to straight into the air. That would be a positive launch angle. And anything that goes down off the bat would be a negative launch angle. So you're talking about positive launch angle. Kind of the sweet spot for that would be anywhere from 10 to 25 degrees, depending on your exit velocity. So if you think about, Aiden referenced, different attack angles and things of pitchers. The average fastball comes in at 8 degrees downhill. So from an offensive standpoint, we're trying to match that up with a positive 8 attack angle to produce, launch angles of anywhere between 10 to 25 degrees. A couple more of the data points: distance, you got your ground ball percentage, line drive percentage, fly ball percentage, and then even deeper into, the 3 parts of the field: the pull side, the middle, and the opposite side of the field. Those different percentages where our hitters have put balls in play. And then conversely with that, pull, middle, and opposite exit velocity. And then once again, pull, middle, and opposite launch angle. The next slide here. So this is looking at, this is a freshman right-handed hitter, and this is looking at batted ball. And as you can see, we've got fastball, breaking ball, off-speed total, and then team average. And some of the metrics, you see his peak exit velocity of 102.9. That was on a fastball. Peak exit velocity on off-speed was 100.4. We can start to dive in with our players individually to help them understand who they are as hitters currently. Hard hit percentage, damage percentage, what we discussed earlier. So for this particular guy, his average exit velocity on fastballs was roughly 87. Now his average launch angle was negative 11.6. So he's hitting a lot of ground balls on fastballs. And so understanding, like, we can start to speak the language of, hey, is it a mechanical thing? Is it an approach thing? Is it a swing decision thing? And so if you look at the chart below, we've got the strike zone where all of those balls that he put in play are the data points on the left. The spray chart in the middle is where he hit the baseballs. And then the heat map on the right is color-coded, red being hot and blue being cold. Those are his average exit velocities on balls or pitches that he swung at and put in play. So just a quick snapshot of this particular guy. He hit his hardest pitch in what we would call the 6 zone, which is the pitch middle away, roughly belt high, which was 102.9. And conversely, he has struggled more with the pitch in of an average exit velocity of 82.1. So with those things being known, we can start to discuss an approach with our hitter. So he has an idea of, hey, I'm going to look for pitches more middle away. With this guy, he's hitting the ball over 90, 92 on pitches middle and middle away, 102.9. So he can start to formulate a plan of attack for the pitcher that he's going to see. And with the average, like on breaking ball, if you can see here, his launch angle is on balls in play 5.2 degrees, so not very high. So understanding how he can get the ball more on a line. Same with the fastball, negative 11.6. So now we can start to speak the same language, which ultimately is going to speed up the developmental process for each guy. This next slide, kind of the same deal and a little bit more of more depth here with plate disciplines. Plate discipline is something that we really pride ourselves in as hitters here at Davidson. You know, I think we set our hit by pitch record last year. You know, having the discipline, we took our walks, and that's something that we talked to our hitters about in their approach. This particular hitter here, just looking at the numbers, of all the pitches that he saw, 49 fastballs, his swing percent on fastball was 38.8%. On breaking ball, it was 21.9%. And kind of a deeper dive into that, the whiff percent, Aiden had mentioned whiff percent. So of pitches that he swung at, that he actually swung and missed on in the zone, that is our whiff percent. So for this particular guy, fastballs, his lowest whiff percent is 21.1%. His highest whiff percent is 60% on off-speed pitches. So what does that tell us? What does that tell him? Things that he can work on. Zone swing percent on fastballs in the zone. So if there's a fastball in the zone, he's swinging at 80% of those fastballs, and he's actually making contact with 81% of those fastballs. So oftentimes he's on time with fastball. Conversely, on the off speed, he's swinging at 6.3% of off speed in the zone. So what that says is he's taking a lot of breaking pitches, off speed pitches in the zone, and he actually had a 0% or 100% contact percentage on pitches in the zone, but he also had his lowest exit velocity on, I think it was 79% on off-speed pitches. So we can start to talk approach on how we can help this young man be a better hitter. And if you look down at his chart with his plot chart and his spray chart and his swing and miss chart with the heat maps, you know, we can show it to him in color coded. You know, he struggles with that pitch away, and most of those pitches ended up being, you know, sliders that were kind of down and away. So we can start to have that conversation of is it a mechanical adjustment? Is it an approach adjustment? Is it a combination of both? And so we can better inform that hitter. Another piece of technology that we used this kind of towards the back end of the fall was a thing called Blast. And if you see the picture, on the left with the bat, the ball on the home plate, Blast is the little thing that goes on the end of the knob. It's like with a silicone piece that slides over the end of the knob there, and all these data points it measures within each individual swing. So this is a kind of a plot of it was December 1st. This guy had taken X amount of swings, and so here are some data points that he's able to see that we're able to see as coaches, and we can communicate with one another in terms of, where they're at in that moment in time. So we've got plane, connection, rotation, bat speed, rotational acceleration, on-plane efficiency, to name a few. And this is a deeper dive into that blast data. The beauty with blast is our guys were able to have kind of immediate feedback. If they were working on a particular thing in their swing, we could call out the metric to them real time so that they had an idea. And some of these data points that you see, for example, bat speed 73.3, Division I average is 65. Major league average is, I believe, 72. Now that's average of all their swings. So we've got guys that are above that, guys below that. But bat speed is something that we train and we work on, around the clock. A couple of the metrics you can see: attack angle. That was probably one of the bigger metrics that our guys benefited from this fall in terms of attack angle. Attack angle, like I mentioned before, the ground being 0, anything above it can measure in positive degrees. So for this particular guy, it was 10 degrees. And as I had mentioned before, we had some guys that were too steep in the air, too steep swinging down. And so being able to help guys through it real time, hey, that attack angle was 0 or it was 2. The average fastball comes downhill at 8 degrees. And if we want to match that up with a head-on intersection, we want to have at least a positive 8 attack angle. We had other guys that were too steep uphill, which were closer to 20 degrees. So being able to kind of make those real-time adjustments, blast has been a nice piece to the puzzle for our guys. And the beauty is we can also see those metrics when they're off campus. If they take it home with them, for example, over the break, we can communicate, we can see what they're doing, we can talk with our guys, ultimately continuing the development process. This is a couple pictures of, comparing data for hitters. And as Joe had mentioned, we like to kind of hit them all 3 angles. We want our guys to see it, hear it, and be able to do it. So everybody learns a little bit differently. And so there's some data points and visuals to our guys that one is a left-handed hitter, one's a right-handed hitter here. They've got their data points on the left, they got their spray chart in the middle, and then they got their swing and miss chart on the right. So we can have those daily, weekly conversations of, we continue to swing in this zone, we continue to swing and miss. Let's look for a pitch maybe not in that zone. Pitchers tend to miss, and if we continue to expand our zone, we're putting ourselves at a lesser chance of being successful. And this is another variation of those data points with balls put in play. Balls that were put in play is the plot on the left. And for us, we're looking for pitches, over the heart of the plate. Spray chart is in the middle, and then the heat map of exit velocities is on the right. And the hitter on top, if you look at his heat map, he is red hot on pitches in the middle of the plate. And that sounds very simple, but getting hitters to have a more narrow focus on pitches that they can do damage in and to drive, as pitchers are trying to, get pitches that move late. That's why hitting is the hardest thing to do. But, giving this information to our guys so that they can see it, that they can realize where they're at right then, and so that they can be ultimately the best version of themselves. And having this technology has been really a game changer in our guys understanding who they are. Last slide here. This is kind of more of a deep dive into one of our guys. And it gives us feedback as coaches and as players of, okay, now what? What can we work on? With the data that we collected this fall, this guy, peak exit velocity 107, average exit velocity on fastball 93.2, and his hard hit percentage and damage percentage were extremely high on fastball. Where he had an opportunity to improve and moving forward is on the off speed. So, giving this player an individualized plan with all of our guys to help them be the best version of themselves, understand where they're at, who they are as hitters, and things to work on. Scouting reports are a real thing. And, as much as we're working in-house with our guys, the people that we're competing against oftentimes have a lot of the same data points. So they're using things that they have to try to get our guys out. And we're trying to game plan and prep for what we do well to also be able to execute against those pitchers as well. So very fortunate to have this for our hitters. Ultimately, we're able to combine the tech with the data, with the numbers, and having great coaching to speed up the development process. And once guys can see it, they can hear it, they can feel it, they can do it, that's when growth really tends to take off. And got to show this last video. We love seeing these. Show that one more time. And that is all I have on the hitting side. I will turn it back over to JP.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Josiah. Thank you, Aiden. Wow, that was a lot of information. My head's spinning. I feel like I know a lot about baseball, but I think I have a lot to learn, and this is a great tool for all the Davidson guys, and the staff is obviously well versed in it. And I have a lot of questions, but we do have a few questions we're going to come to in just a moment, so hang with us. But first, we wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek at the 2024 Davidson baseball schedule, which we will release officially tomorrow. Let me share my screen real quick. And I'll just kind of scroll up and down a little bit. As you see, the opener February 16th, Morehead State comes to town. Road game at Charlotte not long after that, and we can kind of go through it a little bit. Rucker, what jumps out at you with this 24 schedule you have?
Yeah, so it's a unique year. It's gonna be the last year of 8 conference weekends. So the Atlantic 10 is one of the few leagues that has less than 10. So we were moving to 10 weekends starting the 2025 season. Personally, I like the ability to play at home as much as possible. And that certainly helps with the class process. I think there's a lot to be said for sleeping in your own bed as well. So I think this year, a few more road trips than maybe what we're accustomed to for some earlier teams. I think certainly as we get into the year and later in the year, so some more familiar names up and down with the Atlantic 10. So we'll have a couple minor league park games. I always look forward to those between Charlotte and Kannapolis. We've been very fortunate to get some opportunities there. First time back to South Carolina in a couple of years. I think the last time I played down there was, maybe 2021, and we're not playing well at the time, and went in and played really well and took a game from them. So certainly look forward to getting back down there. I think it's a challenging A10 schedule. The reality of the transfer portal world right now, a lot of the teams we're playing are bringing in 25 or 30 transfers or new players each year. As I mentioned earlier, we have 14, which is a massive, massive number for us. I think a lot of the teams you can look at, I'm not going to name names, maybe with the exception of Brown. I think there's a lot of teams that do really utilize the transfer portal, be it for junior college players, be it for Division Ones. There's some teams within our league that brought in 30, 35 guys this year. If the Division One roster is 40, if you're bringing in 35, it's a lot of turnover. So there might be some teams wearing both the players' names on the back and maybe the players' names on the front too, so the coach knows who to yell at the right time. So it'll be different. So within that, I don't really know. I don't know a lot about our league right now. They talk to our guys a lot about worrying about what we can control, and some of our coaches in the past, especially, they thought it was crazy because I don't look at other teams' scores. Don't really look at stats until we get ready to play that team. And think sometimes you try to use the transitive property in college athletics, and well, this team beat this team, and this team's in this place, so we should beat them, but they should beat them. And I think John Wood talked a lot about, you just kind of worry about your own guys and do what you do and do as well as you can. I think this TrackMan information, when you start looking at scouting reports, the good old days when I was at Stanford University and doing, all of our scouting there, it was, you call, a local team that, so maybe we're playing Jacksonville State on the weekend and they just played Auburn midweek. Well, you call Auburn and, hey, yeah, this guy stinks, hard in, spin away, and velo wins. And, you kind of look up some of Auburn's stats, and, their velocity guys are 92, 94. And, at that time at Stanford, we had 1 year where we were starting a 82 to 84 mile per hour right-hander. And I don't know if velocity inside wins in that case. So I think it's the TrackMan, the amount of video that's out there now, it allows our scouting reports to be a heck of a lot better. Todd mentioned a little bit maybe of self-scouting, self-evaluation with our guys, and the video's there. Joe can go in and watch that, watch the catchers, more or less 12 hours later. Hey, we were really good on this, we're really bad on that. And this is an interesting piece we maybe didn't touch on there. College umpires are very aware of what schools do or do not have TrackMan. And this, I think 6 teams in our league have TrackMan now, roughly 10 in the state of North Carolina do, maybe 11 actually. So you talk to the schools that have it, and a lot of times the first thing the umpire does when they get there is they ask either the coach or whoever's helping him get situated, hey, TrackMan running today. And what tends to happen is that strike zone without TrackMan, every once in a while, it's basically batter's box to batter's box. All of a sudden, TrackMan gets there and their supervisor, their coordinator's getting the information. And it gets a lot truer. And what we saw this fall was that a lot of pitches that look visually up probably are actual strikes by rule book definition. So that will be interesting to see, especially in professional baseball. AAA right now is using it in an automated strike zone. When that makes it to Major League Baseball, if it eventually filters down to college baseball, we could see some games that might be altered a little bit by a little bit more consistent strike zones.
All right, RT, let's take some questions. One was from a name that a lot of us know, Jake Sidwell, catcher on the 2017 team. Pretty good guy. I believe he had a tag or two, maybe 2 tags of a Carolina runner in particular that helped lock up that regional win in Chapel Hill. What data points have you seen or do you think are the biggest indicators of offensive production?
So Todd, I'll start this and you can jump in. And Sid, we've been texting a little bit on the side, but love the question. And Sid, you probably remember we're not a huge cliche program, right? Like we're not a big hashtag and tweet it out. And there's some people that do that's great, and not something we've done a lot of, but we did finally kind of put our offensive identity under 4 parameters. And it's dominate the zone, drive the ball, defend the plate, and diversify. And the idea within that is dominate the zone. As Todd talked a lot about it, its approach and its pitch selection. So before we even talk about mechanics, it's understanding, not just what is a strike, what is a ball, but what am I able to handle? What pitch can I drive? And I think that the TrackMan, some of the heat maps, is a phenomenal tool for that. Absolutely phenomenal. So Todd spends a lot of time talking with the guys about, hey, what areas are we looking? Where are we trying to drive? It's very similar. Sid, maybe, you remember catching Evan Roberts, the Saturday guy on our 2017 team. It was a softer fastball changeup guy as a left-handed pitcher. And, if you were going to sit velocity or sit super firm against Evan, probably didn't make a lot of sense. I think that's the beauty of a lot of the video we have now, is we know what pitchers are going to do. It's not just, oh, this guy throws a lot of curveballs. Well, hey, he throws curveball 72% of the time when he's ahead of the count. Our guys can sit curveball in that situation. And, the analogy we talk about with the hitters a lot is, don't hunt polar bears in Florida, right? So if you're a hitter and you're facing Evan Roberts and it's 70% off speed, it doesn't make sense to gear up for a fastball in or third and a plus count, because you're just not going to get it. I think bat speed is incredibly important. But Todd, if you want to jump in there and kind of touch on Sid's question, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. To your point, like sit on what you're going to get, not just what you want to hit. So, if you think about, I think the data gives us an idea of who we are as an offensive individual, like our identity. And, if you can only hit the ball 90 miles an hour, our launch angle needs to be much flatter and thinking more balls in the gap, where if you're a guy that can hit the ball, 107, 105, 110, then we can live more in the air with a higher launch angle. So like some of our guys that hit the ball harder can live in the 25-degree or even higher launch angle, depending on the day, where guys that are maybe 95 to 98, they need to stay a lot flatter to have, a flatter launch angle, closer to that 10-degree angle. And so I think to RT's point of, understanding what balls that you can drive and what locations those are in, and then really, the data can back you up. So then once we know kind of who we are as a hitter and what we handle well, we can really lock in and hunt those zones, hunt those areas, hunt those parts of the plate and or pitch to do more damage. And, we don't want to swing at balls out of the zone. The old adage of swing at strikes and take balls, very simple, but let's swing at strikes that we can do damage on and hit really hard. Hit it hard, not far. And if they don't throw it in there, let's be disciplined enough to take our walks and create offense other ways.
Good deal. You talked a little bit, Todd, about the pitch angle, the average pitch angle. Good question here. Just with knowing the things we know now with TrackMan and things like that, does it change how you guys have to throw in BP at all?
I think we're fortunate to have some pretty good BP throwers on staff. I think it depends what the day is for. Is it a feel good day, or is it more of a challenge day where we can, we're fortunate to have some machines. We could probably use a couple more, but we're fortunate to have some machines where our guys can see, velocity and or spin at a game replicated angle, spin, release height, all those things that our guys are going to see. And yeah, we'll do some, seated BP at, if you throw it 35 miles an hour at 21 feet and you throw it roughly at their thigh, it replicates 8 degrees. So there's things that you can do that we do that benefit our hitters from a training standpoint. Obviously, outside of just throwing BP, where we can introduce, we'd love to hit machine every day, see some sort of spin every day, and depending on the training that day will dictate what mode or avenue we're going with.
Good deal. And what about Aiden? Maybe you on this, on the pitching side, is there a metric or a few metrics that you're really looking at? There are obviously a lot of different things, but are there a couple that really jump out?
Yeah, I think it's very specific about the arsenal that the pitcher possesses. So in general, similar to like a hitter looking for certain pitches in their strength. So it's very much dependent what the pitcher is looking to accomplish. I think it's just replication and consistency. And then there's like the gold mine of success is throw strikes in consistent manner and where they can't hit it, if you will. So I think that that's the most important thing, is if you can play to your strengths and you happen to match up with certain hitters that don't possess those same strengths, those are the hitters' weaknesses, then wonderful. But if we're thinking specifically about the numbers from TrackMan alone, I would probably say just having consistent movement plots. So if you're looking at those movement plots that we were looking at earlier, so if you have a fastball that you have a lot of vertical movement on in a positive direction, then you want to make sure those are consistently there. Now, obviously, if you're in the middle of a game, you're not going to know okay, well, that was 19 inches and that was 21 inches of vertical break. It's just about executing that pitch at that time. So a lot of it for the TrackMan side is post event, after game, after the fact, and reflecting on that. But at the same time, or in a bullpen setting, that can be immediately after. But I think those are the main things, is just consistency, especially once you start to develop those secondary pitches, breaking ball, change up, etc. Just once you can get that into a feel groove and have those numbers correlate with the movement pattern you want, that I think is what is most important.
Thank you, Aiden. Appreciate it. And yes, Jim Richards, I believe academic credit is something that these guys need to get for putting up with all this information. The player you could have been back in the day if TrackMan was around. Had to go there. Sorry. Love you, JR. Rucker, we talked a little bit about this, but another question just about balancing the feel and the information. And that's something you push different buttons with different guys. Some guys, just maybe retouch on that for just a moment.
Yeah, and that's tough. That is a really tough piece of the puzzle. Andy Bass, who many on here know, works for Pittsburgh Pirates, and that's really his forte, right? Is when do you give feedback? How do you give it? And there's a lot of research that says maybe it's a little bit delayed. Maybe it's not instantaneous. Maybe it's not every swing. I think we certainly had times when guys have their phones with them in the cage and they have blast on there. And we had at one point when we first got blast, guys were, not mid-swing looking down at their phone, but it was basically like swing, not even watching ball flight and immediately looking at their phone. I think I think back to when Nolan Devos, who's with the Houston Astros right now, Nolan came in through a bullpen, I guess 5-6 years ago now, Christmas senior year, and it was uncommitted. We ended up being his only, real college opportunity at the time. And there's a, very legitimate chance that Nolan's a big leaguer and has a chance to make some, make a career as a professional baseball player. But he threw a bullpen and he was 84, 85 miles an hour, but the ball looked different. And we'd say now it has hop, it has ride. We didn't really quite know what TrackMan, or excuse me, what Rapsodo was telling us, but it was Parker Bangs, Ryan Munger, myself sitting there looking at it like, man, like it looks different. Rapsodo says it's like spinning like 2,400 with 100% efficiency. Don't really know what it means, but like, it looks different. So we thought, Nolan was going to be a little bit different. And he worked his tail off, took a 7-8 mile per hour velocity jump, was touching 97 by the end of his sophomore year. And, he's probably going to start next year in AA, and actually just graduated, assuming finals go, will graduate, and, has done that while being a professional baseball player. And he was pitching in Asheville towards the end of the year. He was actually driving back and forth from Asheville on their off days to take class. So pretty cool how he went about things. But we were playing a team in our conference and have a good relationship with them. They told us, I think the question was asked earlier about, training to the right, right pitch angles. And this team took a pitching machine, took the legs off of it, put the machine on the ground, and they were shooting fastballs up to the hitters. So nothing that you would ever teach, I think, in a traditional swing or softball. Sid, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but something you maybe see in the softball world. Well, this team knew that Nolan's ball had so much rise to it. They wanted their hitters to have the visual of that baseball coming up all week. Now, Nolan still had a pretty good day against them, but that's something we do every once in a while with our guys. And I think the training methodology really changed in professional baseball for sure. I think certainly college, where, as Todd said, it's a lot of machines. It's overtraining. You're getting guys to see the equivalent of 110, 115. We have some baseballs that are shaped like a baseball, have seams. You touch them initially, there's a little bit of firmness to them, but they actually become squishy, more pressure. So in that world, if a guy fouls the ball off his ankle, fouls the ball off his foot, machine shoots one a little bit haywire, a guy can get hit by that and not even feel it. And we use that with the infielder some also. So that's been a really good training tool. We have a pitching machine called Spin Ball, 3 dials on it, not your traditional left, right, center, but it's velocity, direction, and then spin rate. And as Aiden alluded to, that spin rate can really make the ball kind of do this, make the ball do this. It's how much shape is on the breaking ball. So that's been a really good tool for our guys. If we're facing maybe a taller guy that tries to sink the ball, we have 2 sets of legs that we can put on it. We'll raise those a little bit to try to give that downward angle. If it's a Bennett Flynn, who is a incredibly unique over the top angle, pushing his breaking ball in a very, very rare way, we can also back that machine up, put the higher legs on it, and create a 12-6 breaking ball, which is like Bennett had. Nolan Devo, same thing, 12-6 breaking ball, but Nolan was a much lower release height. So if we were facing Nolan, we would take that same machine, take the high legs, put our shorter legs on there to create that flatter angle to try to best replicate what Nolan was doing. And again, with the TrackMan information, release heights given, release side angle, so you're able to, instead of just kind of guessing, a little bit better to recreate some of those realistic angles that the hitters are going to see.
Good stuff. Kind of one more on team stuff before we wrap up. Just in general, a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces, leadership, chemistry, those kind of things. What did you see in the fall?
Yeah, it was a real concern in the summer. Michael Carrico's a 3-year starter, gets drafted in the 5th round, signs as a junior. Ryan Wilson, who, our guys heard me talk a lot about this fall, I think was as good of a player in college baseball as there was last year, player of the year, 9th rounder, and signed. And Michael and Ryan, in their own very unique ways, I thought were great team guys, great leaders. Will Schomburg signs free agent as a senior pitcher, and I thought Will was as good or better than anybody in the league last year. Will really grew into a leadership role last year for us, and we needed that. Bennett Flynn, 4-year huge contributor on the mound, big personality, is at Notre Dame as a grad transfer now. Henry Kohler, Party Hank, as some may call him, 4-year starter at Georgia State now. And probably I think probably our leader last year was Jacob Hindeleiter. Same deal, 4-year starter, battled through some really tough injuries last year. And, Hendy's most likely going to be the starting shortstop at Clemson this year as a graduate transfer. And just great personalities, great leadership there. So that was a concern. Mike and Ryan get drafted. Like, okay, we've got a void now. And I think a lot of our just, sloppiness early on and not being very good was we have a lot of guys that are really good kids. I think they're raised to be very respectful of others. They're raised to work hard. And I think there's some trepidation of, okay, we stink right now. How do I say something? If something's going sloppy in practice, who steps up? Who's going to say it? It's a lot of guys that want to do it. We just had that guy initially. I think they had some conversations. We had a few outside people come in and talk to the group, a couple of professional coaches. We had some professional baseball players that have been around the field some this year, and they shared some insight with us. So I thought that was really valuable from our guys to hear it from a big leaguer, a AAA guys maybe like a recent draft and a multi-millionaire at a young age. These are our insecurities as players. These are some of our team experiences. We've had professional coaches. Hey, this is how our organization went from 3 years ago being the worst in baseball to being in the postseason this year. So I think that's been really valuable. And I think our seniors have, in their own way, done a really good job with it. The senior group, they came in that first year after COVID, and it was tough, man. Like, you couldn't really hang out with anybody outside your roommate. I was talking with a couple of those seniors the other day about this, and those guys went through a lot that year. And it was hopefully something we never go through again. And as a class, they've grown so much. The position guys have always been hard workers. And, talking to Tyler Douglas the other day, he's in his own way, he's done a great job of leadership. Like, he talks to guys, he talks the game, he works his tail off. Jake Wilhoit in his own ways has done the same thing. Joe Haney is like his first fall actually, healthy, and his our fall meetings. I mean, I'm just glad I got to have a fall. It's different. So I think very early on, I think the older guys do a very good job of making the younger guys feel welcome. We can sit in our little office at the field, and we kind of joke about it as coaches. Like, you sit in there and, you hear guys talking about going to grab dinner after practice, and, it's a freshman with a senior, it's a junior with a freshman. It's different groups like each time. We can see them walking out across the remnants of the golf course now, and it's different guys walking out all times. And, coaches, we've had some coaches, turn over the last couple of years, and they've all been like, man, like, this is different in that normally it's just the freshmen, or it's just the seniors. And, I don't know what the exact reason for that is, other than expectation is, hey, like, we're all in this together. There's not a, I'm a senior, so I'm gonna throw my trash on the floor and a freshman's gonna pick it up. That blows my mind that some programs do it that way. And I think the guys have done a really good job the last couple of weeks of challenging each other a little bit of, hey, we've got to be on task these next 8 weeks, right? Like, we're on our own. We've got to be lifting. We've got to be doing our throwing program. Like, we've got to get better. And I think guys are pushing each other. I think they told us they created their own little accountability pods. And, it sounds great, right? Like, if you say, hey, we're doing it, sounds great, check the box. But I think we've got the type of kids that are actually going to, stay on that and hold each other accountable. And Jacob Dean, who's not on here, is our new strength coach this year. For those that don't know, the college hired 3 new strength conditioning coaches. We had Evan Simon, the head strength and conditioning coach, the last couple of years, and Evan did a phenomenal job. Great guy, really invested in our kids. And, we've got, I think 500-ish Division I athletes. And I think at the time we had 3 full-time strength coaches, and they were stretched thin. It's just the reality. And JD has been with our guys. He's at practice. He's going to travel with us. And that's just been a blessing. Our guys, I think, are moving better. I think they're physically, I think, for the parents that are on here, I think your son's going to come home, body's being a little bit better, athletic type looking shape. I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle for us. So long answer to your question, JP, I think it was a concern. I think the first month of the fall, that concern was realized. And I think really the last few weeks in particular, there's been some guys that are, I think, in the right way, holding each other accountable. They're having those discussions, and, hey, this is what we are. This is what we're going to be. Now, we're going to get punched in the nose at some point, and we'll see how we respond to it. I think last year, a Jacob Hindeleiter, Ryan Wilson, Will Schomburg on a Friday night, like, man, like, we got it. Let's go. That'd be a challenge this year. Now, I'm really interested in how we respond. I think 2 months ago, I've been scared to death about it. I think we've got the guys that want to do it. I think we can do it. We just got to do it now. And I think that's very, very realistic and capable. So it'll be fun to see it play out. It's going to be a fun spring. I think this team's going to have an opportunity for a lot of growth. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Well, and that's part of the college game in general. Just, Ryan Wilson and Carrico didn't come in with that kind of clout at Davidson yet. They had to kind of earn that and prove that themselves as leaders. So it'll be fun to watch and see who emerges this year. But time for 2 more questions. One, Todd Miller, I think you're going to take this one. What kind of scouting data is shared between schools ahead of games?
So the scouting is honestly, it's all shared. So you can look at it anytime, and it's updated as games are played. So anything we can see anything that we've showed you tonight on other people. So my point with scouting reports are real. We're going to know the metrics. We're going to know the movement plots. We're going to know the arsenal that other pitchers possess, and they're going to know, our hitters' heat maps and where they do damage on balls and where they, don't. So it's that cat and mouse game of preparing our guys to be able to execute everything. They're going to be better at some and lesser at others. And then, going to prepare them to hit and to pitch against guys that are doing the same thing against them. So, we feel like we do a really good job with player development and also the scouting and getting our guys prepared. To your point earlier and RT's point, I think sometimes the most important thing is when we share that information with them, because it's easy to get sped up here. When we get sped up here, we don't get the chance to go out and compete at our best level. So being smart and understanding your players, who you share what with, and when you share it with them, so that at the end of the day, they have the most information that they can handle to be able to go out and compete at their best level.
Thanks, Todd. And Rucker, we'll kind of wrap up with this. And Jeff, please pop on for this as well. Thank you. The preferred way for folks to give to Davidson Baseball, and also kind of what are the next steps? What are the things the program is in need of or wants?
Rucker, I'll kick that off and then you can take it from there if I miss anything. So first of all, every gift that's made to the DAF Baseball Fund goes 100% to baseball. They've got the chance to use that money for their greatest needs that come through in the time of the year, whether it's an increased travel budget for more games on the road, whether it's bringing better nutrition to the players, whether it's bringing the next piece of technology to the players and to the coaches to bring that edge. Those are all things that can be supported through the DAF baseball operations budget line. So I never would encourage anybody around other things or ever to be nervous about that at all, because it's the best way to do it. We do have some needs within the stadium. The field is looking great these days, but there are some pieces that we would love to do in the coming years. So if you're in a position where you think you want to have an impact on something like that, please reach out to me. I'm a great person to start with. I'll be the team liaison for baseball this year, and we'll certainly be able to work with the coaches to identify the greatest needs for donors who want to make an impact that way. I'm just thrilled that we've still got almost everybody who started this call with us today, an hour and a half in, and I just want to say my own thank you to everybody who's here. You're obviously people who love Davidson baseball, and many of you I know given in the past financially. We hope that you'll do that, of course, but we also hope that you'll get out to games and keep an interest in this team as you're showing tonight that you have. So thanks all. And Rucker, is there anything I missed?
No, I think that's spot on, Jeff. And we are, I think as coaches, and certainly that for probably my favorite part of doing these Zooms, and we've done about, I guess, one a year, sometimes two, and we will do another kind of a first pitch season preview, late January, early February, date still kind of TBD on that. And we are also, for those in the Charlotte area, we started this a couple of years ago. Ian and Mac are working on some dates right now. We plan to have another downtown-ish Charlotte baseball alumni, friends, family, random passerby that likes Davidson baseball come in and hang out. So we will get some dates out for that. We're also Mike Frangello, I believe, is working on maybe a little bit of baseball, kind of an informal get together around a spring game. Jeff and I are actually talking today. This is a little bit even further down the road, but with the new football and lacrosse stadium, the location of that, for those that are not familiar, is just past the left field foul pole. Also within that is a new, and Jeff, correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think a new roughly 13,000 square foot weight room, 2 stories, I believe 21 or 22 racks, and that is going to be absolutely phenomenal for our guys. We'll be able to use it, much easier access, a ton more space. The weight equipment actually went in this week, started going in a couple of days ago. I'm not going to say a definite date that will be in there, been told 2 different ones, but the expectation will certainly be lifting in there. So hopes of maybe a little more formal event for baseball next year tied into a home football game. Those dates have not been released yet, so we'll certainly schedule around that. And I think that space is going to be really, really unique, and we'll be able to use that some great ways. And relative to the question of how to help, keep, if you know of any great players, send them to us, right? Let's pass those good names of good players. And I think for the parents that are on here right now, is cliche as this sounds, maybe not what you're expecting. When your son's home, enjoy them being home. Make sure they get a rest, make sure they get some downtime. If your son, there's a couple, I saw a couple of names, but a couple of the sons, especially those freshmen, they need to put on a few pounds, right? Let them eat some donuts and some ice cream and some cake and dessert for dinner. And, if they come back a few pounds overweight, not a problem. But, really just enjoy the holiday season, enjoy your kids being home. And I was talking this conversation with those pro coaches this morning. I mean, even at that highest level, it is a business, and it's a very, very, very cutthroat business at that level. You're still dealing with human beings, right? You're still dealing with people. I think as I've done this for a while now at Davidson, you had a conversation with some coaches in a large conference this past week, and some of the conversations about the transfer portal, what certain players are demanding to even visit schools now, even in baseball. It's the game's changing. I don't know if it's changing in the right way relative to some of those things. I think we're in a very unique spot where the academic piece still very much matters. It's for us, it's a 4-year commitment on the baseball side. It's not you come in as a freshman, you stink, you're cut, see you later. Whether cliched and old fashioned, I still really believe in the student athlete, the 4-year development, the personal development, and speaking for the other coaches on this, I think they're very much in alignment with that. And the kids on the team are not always going to love us every single day. I think we can be demanding, we can be challenging, but it'd be hard pressed to believe they would not tell you that we have genuine concerns for them as human beings. And I think that's missing a little bit right now in college athletics as things are shifting. So always send us good players. As Jeff mentioned, our DF operating is certainly something that any and all contributions are more than welcomed. I think our facilities come a long ways. I think having the football, lacrosse facility up there by us will really amplify. People will be able to get there a lot easier. I think the parking situation is going to get a lot easier here in the near future. So we're very excited about that. Maybe having a little bit more visibility. The chair backs have been a huge addition. There's some people on this call that were huge components on that. And I think Will DeBose is on here, and Will, as I've said many times, thank you again for your help with that. So it's a great place. It's an easy place to watch a game. Again, for the parents on here, enjoy your kids being at home over the break. Have a great holiday season. And for the people that are still on here, it's still a very strong group on here. Thank you all for doing this. And I will publicly thank our other coaches on this. I was texting them separately, and they were, I thought, absolutely phenomenal. We got a lot of great feedback. And maybe my favorite part of doing all these things is getting the side text from former players or parents. And that means a lot to me. And Aiden, Todd, Joe, you guys were phenomenal. So thank you for the time and effort on that. And for everybody that's on here, certainly appreciate it. I guess finally, Adam and Carissa, thank you all for doing this. Y'all's guidance was wonderful. And certainly not last, Jeff and JP, thank you all for y'all's time. And this has been great.
Thanks, Rucker. Thanks to everyone. I think we'll wrap it right there. Adam, Carissa, thank you for your help behind the scenes. And thank you to everyone for taking part of this tonight.